When it comes time for tax season, many of us think, I'll get around to it when I can. I'm many of us. Doing your taxes is tedious and can be a hassle. There's a lot of room for error, and the less money you have, the easier it is for the IRS to come after you if you make a mistake when filing. That's called an audit, meaning you might owe the IRS even more money later. On average, each year after everything is filed, the IRS is short more than $400 billion in federal taxes compared to their estimates. That's why they reach back out to people to find out where that money is. The thing is, they usually start with the people who probably don't have it.
You are more likely to be audited in the United States if you make $20,000 a year than if you make $500,000 a year.
This is because the IRS doesn't have enough money to hire the highly trained investigators needed to dive into the financial history or go head-to-head with the high-end tax lawyers of the wealthy. Ultimately, it's easier for them to audit lower income people because it's cheap, can be done by mail, and doesn't take a lot of time. Data from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities shows that between 2010 and 2018, the IRS enforcement budget dropped by 24%, and their enforcement personnel dropped by 31%, meaning they have less money and fewer resources for auditing. According to a Treasury Inspector General testimony, between 2014 and 2016, nearly 880,000 high-income people owing more than $45 billion failed to file their taxes, and the IRS is unlikely to go after them. Audits of the rich continue to drop while audits of the poor have stayed the same. When ProPublica mapped out the audit rates for every county in the US, they found that the counties with the highest audit rates were the poorest. And after all of this, these audits of the little guy haven't done much to reduce tax fraud overall. This imbalance isn't expected to change anytime soon. One study found that in the next decade, the rich will avoid $5 trillion in taxes. So, what can be done about this? For 2022, the IRS budget is getting a 6% increase from the previous year as part of the $1.5 trillion spending bill, but that's down from the 14% increase they were originally expected to get. Part of this money will go towards investigative technology and the enforcement division. With more money, there could be the potential to see more fairness in the auditing process, but only time will tell. Now we're bringing in Dorothy Brown, an author and tax law professor at Emory University. She's conducted a lot of research on IRS audits and the U.S. tax system. Dorothy, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
A lot of low-income people who are audited by the IRS are earned income tax credit recipients, and their filing can be complicated and create more room for mistakes. Can you explain what the EITC is and why this process is so complicated?
That's such a great question. So the Earned Income Tax Credit is available to low-income wage earners. And the theory is we want to make sure that low-income workers pay less in taxes, right? Because it's only fair that the lowest income among us pay the lower level of taxes. So what the Earned Income Tax Credit does is it can put money into low-income wage earners' pockets. And the reason why it's so complicated is because Congress wrote it that way. Congress has repeatedly kept the complexity in the Earned Income Tax Credit, and their solution is to basically tell the IRS to audit Earned Income Tax Credit claimants a lot. When one of the easiest fixes would be to just simplify the Earned Income Tax Credit. Congress refuses to do it, and they make the Earned Income Tax Credit claimants vulnerable to increased IRS audits.
So besides it being easier to audit EITC claimants, how much do these audits help the IRS make up for missing tax dollars?
Almost not at all. It's called the tax gap, the amount of what's owed versus what's paid. The tax gap that's attributable to the Earned Income Tax Credit is so small, as opposed to the tax gap that's attributable to self-employed income. So we know people who are in a cash business, they don't report 100% of their income. There's much more money available, much more of the tax gap that's attributable to those taxpayers than the Earned Income Tax Credit. So if you think about what's the old adage, why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is. The money is not in the Earned Income Tax Credit, yet they keep doing it because it's easy.
Since you're the expert, I love that I'm able to kind of throw these questions at you. We know that the IRS needs more money to do more audits of the top 1%, that group of high earning individuals that we were talking about earlier. What do you think it will take for the IRS to get that necessary funding to shift the prioritization of audits to the top earners rather than the EITC claimants?
Well, two things. They're going to need Congress to pass a bill. If Build Back Better was passed, it had money to increase audits by the IRS. But also, even in the absence of congressional action, the IRS could decide not to spend that many resources on the earned income tax credit claimants. So the IRS has agency here, and they're choosing to just do what they've always done as opposed to doing what's fair and just.
Dorothy Brown is an author and tax law professor at Emory University. She's conducted a lot of research on IRS audits and U.S. tax system, the U.S. tax system, I should say. Dorothy, thank you so much for your time and your expertise.
Thanks for having me.
So what happens if you haven't filed your tax returns for a few years? That may sound like a sticky situation to be in, but no worries. You can still file and sort it all out. Our friends at the Washington Post explain the best steps to take if you run into this problem.
So we got a call from a reader who hasn't filed his tax returns for a couple of years.
Hi, what do I do if I haven't filed taxes consistently over the last, say, 3 or 4 years?
Thank you for calling in. And listen, I understand how that call probably was really difficult because you might be embarrassed. You haven't filed your tax returns for several years, and I get it. Sometimes life's getting in the way, or maybe you suspected that you owed the IRS and you didn't have the money, and you figured, why should I file? I don't have the money. Well, here's why. There's 2 reasons why you want to file. First of all, if you owe the IRS, the longer it takes for you to file, the more money it's going to cost you. You're going to get penalties and interest, penalties for not filing on time, penalties for not paying on time, and then all the interest that goes along with that, which is compounded daily. So the sooner you can file those returns, contact a tax professional, have them fill them out for you and file. And if you don't have the money, you find out that you owe, you can contact the IRS either on the phone. I know, long wait, but still do it. Or you can go online and set up a payment plan. It really is quite easy. I had a friend who was applying for a federal job and she owed the IRS and was just terrified to call. I mean, shaking. I set her right next down to me. We called the IRS, and in less than 15 minutes, she had a payment plan set up. Then I told her to go live with her sister for a couple of years. She got rid of that debt in about 2 years. And so you can too. I know the IRS is very scary, but they do have resources and platforms and systems that allow you to pay that debt over time. Here's the other reason why you want to file. They might actually owe you money, and you only have 3 years to collect that money if you were owed a refund from the date the return was due. So you want to file as soon as you can because they might actually owe you money. No matter what, whether you owe or they owe you money, you need to file your returns. Thank you for sending in your question. I'm Michelle Singletary, personal finance columnist for the Washington Post, and I'm here to answer your personal finance questions. All you have to do is call me on a toll-free number, 1-855-ASK-POST or 1-855-275-7678. Just call in, leave your question, and you too might get an answer from me.